So it's time that we begin talking about storage on AWS. Now, when we talk about storage, there are different ways to save data in the cloud, and depending on what data you have, for example, whether you want to store files, database, any sort of backups, any sort of app related data, AWS gives you different storage services. Okay. And storage on AWS is mainly divided into three categories. So let me talk about those three categories. So number one category is which is object storage. Okay, so here I'll say object storage. This is object storage. Then we have the next category, okay, which is the block storage. Okay, and then we have something called as file storage. Okay, so file storage. So all of these are the categories of storage with respect to AWS. Okay, so these are all categories over here. Okay, and when you talk about storage or any sort of storage services, they are likely part of any one of these types. Okay, so let us understand what is object storage. Now, object storage, you can think of object storage where files are being stored, and files are called as objects. And this kind of storage is typically used for things like images, videos, backups, any sort of things. That is where object storage comes into play. Okay, and for object storage, AWS has a service which is called as S3. So it's called S3 over here, like so. Okay, then you have block storage. Now, what is block storage? In block storage, the data is stored in the form of blocks. That is why it's called block storage. Okay, and the kind of service that AWS offers over here is EBS or even Instant Store, right? So here with EBS, what you do is you will attach disk or volumes to your already existing servers, like you have a hard drive. So normally in a computer, you would attach a hard drive to store data, right? Similarly, in EC2 instances, you will attach EBS storage to store the data. So that is what that is a kind of block storage. Then you have file storage. Now for file storage, you have something called as EFS. Okay, which is a sort of a shared file system like a network drive or something. Okay, so these are the storage classes that exist. Now let us begin talking about S3. Now what is S3? So S3 stands for Simple Storage Service. Okay, so it's basically a service provided by Amazon wherein you can host objects. Now you can, when I say objects, basically you can store any kind of file like text, images, videos, backups, logs, and so on. Okay, and you can think of it like something called as Google Drive, Dropbox, but in the cloud, and it is built for developers and companies. So you can store any sort of object, any sort of file, any sort of folder. You can create and upload it over there. Okay, and with S3, okay, I'll just add over here. With S3, things are scalable. Okay, so it's very scalable. So whether you need to store one file, 1 billion files, any number of files, it will just work. Okay, it is durable. Now, when I say durable, AWS says that your data has 99.999 times durability, and the nines they use is 11 times. So basically using 9 11 times. So 2 times I've used 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So this is what AWS says. Okay, 11 nines, and that is what you will hear. So it has it is durable by 11 nines. That is the terminology that you will see being used very, very often. Okay, so that's S3 for you. Okay, and also it's accessible via the internet, so you can access it from anywhere you want. And since it's accessible, you can upload, download, share files using APIs, AWS console. You can make use of CLIs. Okay, now talking about a few S3 related concepts, I want to highlight a few S3 related concepts. So first one is the concept of bucket. So when you're working with S3, you will often hear this term called bucket, S3 buckets. Can I get the S3 bucket name? Can you create a S3 bucket? So these kind of terms is what you will hear very often if you are making use of S3 in your organization. Now, what is a bucket first of all? Bucket is like a container. It's like a folder at the root level in S3, and that is what is called as bucket. Okay, and every file you store in S3 must go into a bucket. Each bucket must have unique name across all AWS services, like across all of AWS, not across all AWS services, but across all of AWS globally, right? Now let me give you an example for this. Let's say I create a bucket saying my bucket. This is my bucket name. Let's say I create. Now, if some other user has already created a bucket with this name, AWS won't allow me to create this bucket, or AWS won't allow me to create a bucket with this name. Even though a bucket with this name is created by another user, AWS still won't allow me to create a bucket with this name, because this name for a bucket is already being used by some other user. Okay. So it's not like bucket names should be unique in your account itself. Bucket names should be unique across all AWS buckets globally, across all users or within all users account. Okay. So that is something that you need to keep in mind. Okay. And yeah, buckets are also region based. So this S3 service is region based. So whenever you are creating a bucket, you have to make sure you select the region as to where this bucket is being created. Okay. So yeah, this is about the terminology bucket that you will hear often. And inside bucket, now bucket will have objects. So inside bucket, you will store something called as objects. So let me reduce the size of this, something like this. And inside buckets, you will have objects. Okay. Now, what are objects? Objects are nothing but your file, your metadata. Okay. So object will consist of your file and metadata. So let me say object is equal to file plus metadata. Now, what is metadata? Okay. Metadata is some information, extra information about your object, like file type, permission, last modified date. So any sort of information like file name, all of this forms the metadata. So object is nothing but your file plus the metadata around it, right? So I hope this is giving you some sense of what S3 is and how it functions. So S3 basically is a short form of simple storage service that is provided by Amazon. It is highly scalable, durable, and it has this concept of buckets wherein you create containers to store objects. Now, objects can be of any type, like it can be a photo, a file, image, video. You can just upload it to an AWS bucket that you create. An object has two things. One is your file and the metadata. Okay. So I hope this is making sense. And when it comes to S3, you can think of bucket as nothing like a folder. Okay. Bucket is nothing but a folder, and object is nothing but a file. Okay. So yeah, this is about S3. I hope this is giving you a sense. Now I would recommend to get hands-on with S3. I would recommend you come over to the console and search for S3 over here. Okay, not S4, but S3. So here you will see scalable storage in cloud is how AWS describes it. Okay, and you can see top features like buckets, storage lengths, batch operations, express one zone. Okay, I'll just select S3 right now, and we'll try creating a first bucket. Okay, all right. So I do have a couple of buckets already created over here. Okay, one bucket I believe I had created some time back only. All right. But if you are like if you have not created any buckets, you won't see any buckets created. And here you can see all the regions. Okay, so depending on where you are based, I'll just select North Virginia region over here. Okay, and what I will do is I will try creating a bucket over here. Okay, so you can see these buckets are located in Europe region. What I can do is I can get rid of these buckets if I want to. I can say delete. Okay, and this is going to delete the bucket. You can see confirm deletion. So it's asking me to confirm deletion, enter the bucket name. Okay, the bucket name is dangerous. So I'll just enter the bucket name after copying it. I'll also delete this one. Okay, so this is also a dummy bucket that I'll try to delete. So this is deleted. Okay, now what I will, so if you don't have any buckets, it's likely you will see this kind of a page. So you can see create a bucket for every object in S3. Every object in S3 is stored in a bucket. To upload files and folders in S3, you will need to create a bucket where the object will be stored. So it clearly says that objects cannot exist without a bucket. So bucket is a container that will hold it. And here you can see the pricing as well. There is no minimum fees. You only pay for what you use. Okay. And the prices are based on the location of your bucket. So you can click on view pricing details over here, and you can see the kind of pricing over here. So you can see the storage pricing in North Virginia region, and you can compare basically where all you get the cheapest price for your bucket. Okay, so it won't change much. Okay, but you can select the cheapest region based on your requirement. I'll just select East Northeast Virginia. Okay, and I'll say create a bucket. Okay, so I'm in Stockholm. I don't know why I'm getting switched. So I'll just say North Virginia, and I'll try to create a bucket there. So you can see AWS region is North Virginia, general purpose bucket. Okay, and I'll give this bucket a name. So I'll say my bucket. Now it's likely this is not a unique name. So it's likely some other user must have created a bucket with this name. And you can see over here a message, bucket must be 3 to 63 characters and add a unique name. It must be unique within global namespace, which means the bucket name that you are entering should be unique across all AWS users, right? And it must also begin with a letter or a number and valid characters. These are some rules basically. Okay. And here you can copy the settings. If you have an existing bucket, you can copy the setting from those bucket. All right. Here you have some ownership related information. So here we have said ACLs visible, which is the default one. So I'll keep it like this. Block public access setting for this bucket. So one thing you need to understand is, do you wish to grant or enable public access to this particular bucket? Okay, so I'm saying block all public access. Bucket versioning. So here, so you can uncheck this if you want to enable public access. Okay, but I'm just keeping it checked. Bucket versioning. Versioning means keeping multiple variants of an object in the same bucket. So if you're using services like Git or Dropbox, you will know they keep versions of your files. Right, so you can enable bucket versioning over here. You can add tags if you wish to. You can enable encryption and a bucket key as well. Okay, so something like that is what you can do. I'll also I'll keep this public access disabled. I'll say create the bucket. It's likely it won't allow me to create because the bucket with same name already exists. So I'll say 7007, something like this. My bucket 007. Does it exist? Okay, it exists. So 7123. Let me see if it exists. Okay, failed to create. The specified bucket name is already taken. All right, so I'll say 9929963. I'll enter some random name and let me see if it allows me to create a bucket with this name. Okay, so it allowed me to create a bucket with this complex name. Okay, which is good. Okay, and now what I will do is you can add a file over here. Okay, so you can add a file. So here what I can do is here on my local machine. Okay, let me do like this. Here on my local machine, I have this hello text, right? Hello text. So this is a normal text file. What I will do is I will say upload, and let me see if drag drop interface works over here. So I'm not sure. Okay, it works. So I've not done drag drop ever. So I was not sure. I've literally like clicked on upload whenever I wish to upload the files. Okay, so you can see over here, it's uploaded, and you can see over here, add files and folders you want to upload to S3. To upload a file larger than 160, use AWS CLI or SDK or REST API. Okay, so I've added one file, hello text, and here you can see the destination is this. Okay, and you can set the permission over here. You can set the properties. So you can see the property here. This is a standard. Okay, so this is a storage class that you have to select basically. So I'll keep this storage class selected to standard. Now, depending on kind of data that you're storing, there are different storage classes that are designed. So standard is the one that we have, which is designed for frequently accessed data. Okay, so if you want to access your data within milliseconds and it's frequently accessed, you can make use of standard. Intelligent tiering. So you can see data with changing or unknown access patterns. So that is where you make use of intelligent tiering. Infrequent access data once a month. So this is basically some sort of reports that you have created. Okay, and you want to store it somewhere, and the access is very infrequent. So what you do is you make use of this standard over here. Okay, standard storage. One zone. So this is recreatable, infrequently accessed data once a month with millisecond access. Okay, so this is another one. Glacier instant retrieval. So this is long-lived archive data accessed once in a quarter. Okay, so if there is some data which you don't want to access, or access at least once in a quarter, or once in a year, there is another storage class. So depending on the kind of data that you wish to store over here, okay, you can select the storage classes, and you can see Amazon S3 pricing over here. So if you go over here to Amazon S3, you can see storage and request, okay, security buckets, and here. So you can see here you have pricing tiers for different kind of storage classes. So if you're not accessing your data and it is very infrequent, so the cost is very low. You can see the cost is very low. Okay. Archive instant access tier. So this is the cost is very low. Okay. So depending on your storage class, basically the kind of data you are willing to store and how frequent you want to access it, you can choose the appropriate storage tier so that the right kind of pricing is applied to the data. Okay. And you can save a bit depending on the kind of storage class you selected. Okay. So this is very important. If you want more information, you can click on this info over here and you will see the wonderful documentation appear over here. You can see, right? Now, AWS, what they do is they replicate the data across multiple availability zones. So you can see the availability zones, it is replicating the data across, right? And this is to make your data highly available. If one zone goes down or something happens over there, then you have data replicated or duplicated on some other zone. Okay. So that is what this is for. All right. Permissions, I'll just leave it like this. We'll come to that. Don't specify an encryption key and checksums. This is something that I have, I'm not modifying, and I'll just say upload over here. Okay. Now the moment you say upload, okay, it is simply going to upload it to the AWS bucket, and you can see your file over here within the bucket. And if you close this, okay, you can see your file appear over here. Now after the upload is done, okay, you can come to the screen, okay, wherein this is where your bucket is. Okay, let me collapse this. So you're going to see hello.txt and you can see the file type and everything over here. All right. Now, if you click on this, of course, you can see the details about this particular file over here, right? You can see the object URL. You can see the entity tag. You can see the Amazon resource name over here, S3 URI. All of these things you can see, and they are available at the button click. You can simply copy it. Now what I will do is I'll copy this object URI and I'll try accessing it right from my browser. Now, of course, if I try to access it from the browser, I'm going to see access denied over here. Now, the reason it is not accessible is because, whatever you upload on S3 is private by default and you have to make it explicitly available to the entire world. So what I will do is I will come over here. Okay. And if you go to the object permissions over here, so this is hello text. If you go to object permission, you will see over here, like this bucket has a bucket owner and it has like all the permissions over here is governed by the bucket owner. That is what it says. So come over here and what I will do is I will come to the bucket and I'll click on permissions. And here, if you see, when creating the bucket, we had blocked the public access. So this is a setting that we need to access over here. And I'll just say uncheck over here. Okay, so this will basically make sure that everything in the bucket is publicly accessible. I'll save this. It is asking me to confirm. So I'll say confirm like so. Save this. It's saved. And now this won't be enough. Okay, is what I meant to say. So this itself won't be enough. So if you try to access this, it will still won't work. So what I will have to do is I will have to come to the bucket. I'll have to go to permissions. And here I'll have to add a bucket policy. Now to create the policy, I'll say edit over here. And you can see this nice editor opened over here. So AWS makes really easy for us to create a bucket policy. Now what is a bucket policy? Bucket policy governs the permissions as to what anyone can do on this particular bucket and all the objects within it. Okay. And it's typically written in JSON over here. Okay. And it provides access to objects stored in buckets. So you can see over here. So here you can click and you can see policy examples. There will be some policy examples for you to work on. Okay, you can see manage user access, granting read-only permission to public anonymous users, managing bucket using canned ACLs. So you can see this is the dummy policy. So for popular use cases, what AWS has done is they've created some policies over here already. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and instead of policy example, you have something called as policy generator as well. Okay, so here we'll generate the policy using this generator. It's a tool from Amazon. So I'll say, I'll select over here S3 bucket policy is what we are creating. Okay, now within S3 bucket policy, whenever you are creating a policy, there are different kinds of statements that you will have to add. Okay, now one statement is effect. Now what is effect? Effect mentions whether you want to allow or deny. So here you can see two options. So I'm saying allow because I'm creating a policy that will allow any anonymous user to access the file via the internet, via the browser using the URL of my resource. Okay, so I want to make it publicly available. Why would you want to do this first of all? So imagine if you're building an e-commerce website, you have all the images stored on S3. Okay, now if someone accesses the front end, or of course the front end will render the images. So those images have to be publicly available, right? There has to be read access that is enabled. Of course, they cannot modify or delete, but the read access should be enabled. So that is what we are doing, right? So I'm going to say effect is allow. Okay, principal. So you have to mention principal. Now principal is principal dictates who this applies to. Okay, this policy applies to whom. So I'll say this policy applies to everyone. So I'll mention a star over here. Now it is asking me for actions. Now actions is basically the specific permission that you want to add. For example, whether you want to allow download, whether you want to allow the write objects, whether you want to allow get objects, what do you want to do? So I'll select over here and I'll say get object. Okay, so this is the get object. I'll select this. So you will see you have get object. You can select multiple as well. Okay, depending on your requirement, but I'm just selecting one get object. Now it is asking me for ARN, which is Amazon resource name. Okay, so here you can tick all resources if you wish to, or you can mention an ARN in this particular format over here. What I will do is I'll just copy this. Okay, and I'll add the bucket name. So here I'll come to the bucket policy, and here I have the bucket name. So I'll just copy this so that there are no mistakes, because our bucket name is dangerous, So here I've added the bucket name. Okay, now after slash, it is asking me for key. So I need to say apply this like for all the objects within this bucket. So that is why I've added a star over here. Okay, so this is done. And now what I will do is, so the statement is created. Now I'll say add a statement. So when I say add a statement, the statement is added like this. So you can see the principal is star, effect is allow, action is get object, resource is this. There are no conditions, and you can remove this as well. And you can add multiple statements over here. So what this tells you is multiple, like one policy can have multiple statements in it. Okay, but I just need one statement, since I'm just enabling access, anonymous access basically to all the files that are stored in this bucket. Read only access, right? Get object means read only access. And now over here below, so you can see over here the type of policy you selected. Step 2 is added statements. Step 3 is you will say generate policy. The moment you say generate policy, you will get this kind of a JSON which is generated by this tool. So you have to simply copy this, copy policy, come over here, and you can simply paste this. You can see this policy come up over here. Now this is one way to create a policy. Also you can make use of the editor over here on the right hand side. Okay, the editor on the right hand. You can say add a statement. So you can see the statement got added, right? You can filter the services S3. So S3 got selected. Okay, now from S3, what actions you want to enable? So you will say get object over here. So you can see get object, and if you can hover on this and see what this is. So get object grants permission to retrieve object from Amazon S3. Okay, what is get object ACL? So there is a description for that. So I'll just select get object, and you can see get object being populated over here. Add a resource. So what is the resource you want to add? So S3 resource type is all resources or an object, right? So you can add the object over here, right? So I can mention my bucket name. So what is my bucket name? My bucket name is this. Okay, I'll add this, and I can add star also over here. Oops. So star is like this. Okay, this is done. I added the resource, so you can see the resource is added now. Okay, and I don't think anything else is needed. Principal is needed, but there is how do we add a principal over here? Okay, so principal, I'll just go and I'll just add a star over here. Okay, I'll just edit it manually. Okay, so this SID is the bucket identifier, or the unique name for, sorry, not the bucket identifier, but the policy identifier or unique name for the policy. So this is given as a statement 1 over here, which is fine. You can edit it if you wish to. So here, and you can say, you can save the changes like this. So you can see the policy is added. Okay, or if you want to add the policy from here, I'll just copy this. Okay, and I can come over here and I can say edit, and I can paste the policy like so. Okay, so depending on from where you want to, like how you want to create the policy, you can basically create it and generate it this way. So the bucket policy has been added. Also the permissions have been updated, permission settings. Now we'll come over here and let us try refreshing this. So the moment you try refreshing, you will see hello over here, because hello.txt has hello inside. And now with this, you can see how you are able to access the file from the browser. And this is not only from this account over here. If you open something incognito or something like that, so I'll just open incognito mode over here. Okay, and you can see you can access this file from anywhere in the world. Okay, so everything in this particular bucket is now going to have public read access. What is public read access? Public read access is anyone, any person, anywhere in the world can get access to the file over here. So I hope you are able to follow along, and I hope this was useful and you enjoyed learning about S3. So do you know you can make use of S3 buckets to host static websites? Let me show it to you. Okay, so here you come to bucket, and here inside the bucket, once you come in, you have something called as properties. So click on properties, and here you will have different properties of buckets. So scroll down, and here you will see one property, which is static website hosting. So you can use this bucket to host a static website or redirect request. Okay, now this is disabled, of course, so I'll go ahead and I'll enable this over here. Okay, and here what you can do is you have to specify the index document. Now we don't have a HTML file, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a HTML website created, a very basic one. Okay, and for that I'm not going to type out the entire website. I'm going to come over here to ChatGPT or any other AI tool you can make use of, and I'm going to say, hey, can you give me a simple one-page index.html which displays a greeting. Okay, and I'll also mention don't complicate, keep it simple. Okay, so it is going to generate this index.html for me. So you can see over here, it's saying greeting page and welcome to my page. So I'll copy this code. I'll come over here. Okay, and here I will right click and I'll create a new file over here. I'll create a new, I'll say new, right click. Okay. So I have an option for text document. So I'll just select the text document and later we'll change the extension. So I'll say index over here, index.html, and I'll just get rid of this txt over here. Okay. Do you want to change the extension? Yes, I want to change, and I'll right click. I'll say edit in Notepad, and here in Notepad, I'll just paste the HTML code that I had copied. Okay. And I'll just say Control S. So this is completely done. I'll just close this Notepad. Now, if you open this to the browser, if you drag drop this in the browser, you will see this is the website. Hello, welcome to my page. Okay. Now what I will do is I will get this uploaded over here. Okay. So I'll say index.html over here. Okay. This is the index document over here. Okay. And then what I will do is I will save this. Now keep in mind this index.html is not yet uploaded to S3. Okay. But I'm still saving the changes. Okay, the changes are saved over here, as you can see. And you can see here, I got the bucket website endpoint. So if you try to access this endpoint, you will see the website page being rendered. Okay, but we have not uploaded index.html. So I'll quickly open this in a new tab. Okay, and what I will do is inside the bucket over here, I will upload this index.html. Okay, so this is added now. You can see. Okay, this is uploaded. I'll say upload. So this is uploaded. You can see over here. All right, this is done. And now if you come to 1 second. So what happened? If you come to S3 bucket, general purpose bucket, and over here, if you go, okay, so you can see there are two files now, hello.txt and index.html. Now here you got this link basically for the website. So if you click on this, let's click on this. Let us see what it renders. You can see it rendered the index.html page over here. You can see. So our website that we just created has been hosted on S3 bucket. Okay. Isn't this amazing? So quickly recap of the steps that we did. We basically uploaded index.html, which is a basic HTML file. Okay. Of course, you can have CSS and everything over here as well. Okay. In the folder. You can create a complex website, that's completely fine. But I have just, for the sake of demonstration, I just have index.html. I'm making use of S3 bucket static web hosting feature. I enabled static web hosting. I mentioned the file over here, which is index.html. Okay, this is the default page of the website. And then I got this bucket URL, bucket website endpoint. I access this and I'm able to see the website being rendered. Okay, I hope you got to learn something over here, and I hope this has been useful. Now let us talk about bucket versioning. Now what is versioning basically? Versioning is a way wherein S3 bucket keeps multiple versions of an object in the same bucket. So if you're using services like Dropbox, you normally get access to versions of your file. Okay. If you're making use of GitHub, you get the versions of your source code, right? So here in S3 also there is a feature. So go inside your bucket and go to properties. And here you will see this property called bucket versioning. And versioning means keeping multiple variants of an object in the same bucket. Okay, so I'll say, so here you can see first of all it's disabled, right? So I'll say edit and I'll say enabled, right? And I'll say save over here. Now the moment I save over here, and if I come to objects over here, I have hello.txt file over here. So let me select this, and here I'll just drag drop hello.txt. So let me drag drop hello.txt again. Okay, and I'm uploading hello.txt like so. Okay, so you can see hello.txt is uploaded now, and I'll go to my bucket now. Let me go to bucket. Okay, so within bucket now, if you go to the object over here, hello.txt, because this is a file I just uploaded. Here you will see versions tab, and if you click on versions tab, you will see this is the current version with this ID. Okay, and this is just uploaded. The earlier version ID was not there because there was no versioning enabled at that time. Okay, but you can click over here and see that version as well. Okay, this is the previous version of the file. Okay, so depending on you when you enable versioning, you will have different versions of the file that S3 is keeping a track of. And the best part is you can restore old versions, undelete files, keep audit history as to how things have changed over a period of time. So all of that can be done with the help of bucket versioning. And this is indeed an important feature like you must be thinking about. It basically prevents and protects you against accidental overwrites, deletes, and if there is something important that you're working on and you don't want to lose your work, okay, with accidental overrides or deletion, you basically have this feature to your rescue. And of course, I would like to mention that if you enable versioning, it is going to cost you slightly more because it is going to store multiple versions of the file, right? So here it is keeping track of multiple versions of the file, which means it is storing multiple versions of the file, and hence it is going to cost you a little bit more over here, right? So yes, this is something that you should be aware of, and I hope you are clear on this concept of bucket versioning.